Welcome to the show. I'm John DeBona, and I'm glad you're here. This is where we cut through the noise and break down the issues affecting our country. Today, we're diving into the undercurrents of Project 2025, a strategic conservative agenda that could redefine our government, reshape our public lands, and impact the health of countless Americans. But before we dive in, if you're here, you know that staying informed and pushing back matters. Visit turnleftpack.org to find out how you can join the fight for a government that works for us all, not just a privileged few. Well, joining me on the show today is Jennifer, a dedicated psychiatric nurse with years of experience. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, can you tell us a little bit about your experience, a little bit about your background, and what brings you here to talk about Project 2025?
Yeah, so I am an inpatient psychiatric nurse. I've been an inpatient psychiatric nurse for about close to 6 years now. Um, and I guess how I got into Project 2025 was I saw the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, go on the podcast The War Room and say, quote, "We are in the process of a second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be." And I was like, wait a second, did I hear that right? What? Are we are we talking about war? Like, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to read this. And so I started reading it. And I realized, as somebody who grew up in evangelical Christianity, that a lot of the language was very much kind of coded and subtle. And there was a lot of double speak and political jargon that I think people could get caught up in and not quite understand what they're talking about. And so I started highlighting paragraphs and I started explaining what they were actually meaning with a lot of their language. And I just started sharing it on social media. I created a Reddit page for it, our Project 2025 breakdowns, and I share it on my Facebook and my Instagram. I've been partnering with our Weird GOP on Reddit, and I've been collaborating with the Lincoln Project over there as well. And so it just kind of took off and blew up, and a lot of people seemed like they were really looking for that section by section breakdown and explanation that they could share with other people and actually use to talk about it with people in their lives. And just one more quick thing about me. A lot of my ancestors actually came here through Ellis Island during the rise of the Nazis in Germany. So this is just something I'm really passionate about. Like, I mean, just I know fascism when I see it, and the document itself and what's going on right now in our country is incredibly dangerous, and we have to take it seriously. And we're seeing the effects in our in our communities all over the country right now.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Today, we're going to be starting with Project 2025's strategy for staffing the federal government, filling critical roles, not with civil servants, but with loyalists trained to execute a specific agenda. Um, Thanks to leaked videos, we can see how this approach could shift the role of government offices from serving the public to serving an extremist partisan cause. Um, Jennifer, what does the training video reveal about how these appointees are expected to operate within federal offices?
Yeah, so I actually watched every single leaked training video on YouTube that ProPublica released. There's 24 of them. It was hours and hours of video. And the biggest takeaway for me, not only watching the videos, but knowing and hearing that the Heritage Foundation has been recruiting these presidential appointees for months. And the estimate that I've heard is that so far they've hired around 40,000 presidential appointees. They've been recruiting at both the Trump rallies and at the Republican National Convention. And what really stood out to me in the way that the videos speak to these people is that you don't necessarily have to be somebody with any kind of training. You could be anyone. But it was interesting the way that they talk about the sacrifices those people need to be willing to make for the cause. There's a lot of talk about um, always furthering the president's agenda and being willing to do whatever it takes. And if the president asks you to do something, not questioning and doing it. And if you're not willing to do that, then perhaps you don't have what it takes. There was a lot of almost like cult type talk, like you need to be willing to give up your weekends, your personal time. You need to be prepared for the potential of litigation. There was an entire video about what to do if you are litigated against, which gives rise to the question, it seems as if they know what they're doing is not only unconstitutional, but illegal. There was also a lot of talk about keeping communications private, making sure that the media doesn't find out what they're doing. Um, and they talk a lot about, they use that term, draining the swamp. And they talk about eliminating all of the federal employees that exist, that any, like, for example, any civil servant that has donated to a Democratic candidate's campaign. I know the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, got on MSNBC and talked extensively about that. And that is what they propose, is removing and immediately firing every single Democrat that works in the government and replacing them with these presidential appointees on day one. And they use that term frequently, day one. And so it's concerning because those individuals are being told that they need to fight against the system, come in, overhaul everything, just kind of start over from scratch, get rid of every policy from the Biden-Harris administration that, they say that the president's that like his agenda doesn't fit with his agenda, and then they're planning to replace all of those policies with all of the Project 2025 policies. And then Russell Vogt has talked about this 180-day playbook, which is kind of like how he plans to implement those rather quickly.
I did. I saw that Russell Vogt interview, and he talked about
Yeah,
mass deportations as being part of
yeah,
the future. It is absolutely frightening.
yeah.
Um, so, how does this approach to staffing differ from traditional government roles?
So I think in the past, when a new president is elected, what happens is they bring in, you know, all of the other officials who've been elected through our votes, but then they appoint. The president has the ability to appoint presidential appointees, but in the past that tends to happen after the election. The way that the Heritage Foundation talks about their plan is that they've been preparing for this for at least the last, probably better part of the last year, if not longer. Um, and their purpose in that, they say, is to get started and do as much as they can do as quickly as possible, because they have a lot that they plan to do. I mean, 922 pages of what they plan to do. Um, and so it's really counting their chickens before they hatch. We haven't had the election yet, and it's really making a lot of assumptions about how things are going to go. And again, that's just, it's concerning because we're seeing a lot of talk about potentially not certifying the election and not accepting the results if they aren't what the conservative and the MAGA Republicans want for an outcome. And so it really it makes you wonder what's coming next and what the plan is, because it's not the way our democracy is meant to function. Um, it's concerning.
Absolutely. The shift will do nothing but erode public trust in government and turn agencies into extensions of a extremist partisan agenda.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the
s-
point. The whole document talks about centralizing power to the president and making sure that those checks and balances that used to exist are gone, and that the Congress and the Supreme Court only exist to further the president's directive and his executive orders. There's even a section in the document where they specifically say something about silencing Congress, that Congress needs to be radio silent if they disagree with the president and what the president wants moving forward. So that's not how our government's meant to work.
Indeed, it is not. So we know that Project 2025 is approach for staffing is anything but impartial. But how far does this agenda go? Let's look at its reach in Colorado after the break and where the stakes for public lands and education could mean a drastic shift in values that we've held dear for a long time.
When I ran for Congress, we flipped more Trump voters blue than any other congressional race in the country. We did this by calling out the GOP's lies and speaking truth against their $1 million attack ads. I've now partnered with Turn Left, and we're taking the fight to the extremists like Marge the Trainwreck Green, Ted Cruz, and Josh Hawley, to name a few. And I'm asking each and every one of you all to donate $25 today to the group that is absolutely helping to send these jackaloons packing. It's time to speak truth to power and turn left.
Colorado, known for its breathtaking landscapes and inclusive public schools, could find itself in the crosshairs of Project 2025. The question is, will local communities have the power to resist, or will this agenda change the very fabric of education and conservation here? Jennifer, what could Project 2025 agenda mean for local Colorado communities, especially around environmental and educational policies?
Well, starting with environmental policies, we've seen a lot. The best example I can think of is with Lauren Boebert's policies, and the way that she has really taken Project 2025 and kind of ran with it. People may not realize, but she's pretty connected to the Heritage Foundation. One of the leaked videos that I watched was her handler talking about their work with big oil and kind of how they've furthered Heritage's agenda. So the interesting thing about Lauren Boebert's policies, the one she's been most vocal about, is almost every single one is directly from Project 2025. When she talks about her fear surrounding the reintroduction of the gray wolves, that is in Project 2025. When she talks about wanting to drill and mine in our national parks and the Bureau of Land Management Property, again, straight out of Project 2025. The biggest overarching concern with our natural spaces here in Colorado is, we in Colorado, we love our wildlife and the environment, and that's what makes Colorado Colorado. And if we were to implement the Project 2025 policies, they really seek to deregulate big oil and mining and drilling companies from any protections that protect those spaces and that protect those species and that protect, I think personally, when I read it too, I even had some concerns over what happens with like tribal lands. Like I just was unclear what the end goal was there. And it doesn't seem like these are good faith actors.
I did see something about what Project 2025 would do specifically on tribal lands. They seem to want to push um, the tribes into a position to where their only way of getting out from under and making a profit would be by bringing in extraction
Yeah.
policies or extraction companies to frack and drill for oil on their
Yeah.
lands, which goes against their basic view of their stewardship of the land. And Project 2025 seeks to compromise those values.
Yeah. And it's really concerning because that was the one piece of Project 2025 that for once didn't necessarily favor like, the white, rich, wealthy billionaire men, was destroying our planet. Like that will benefit no one. That will come back to haunt them as well, whether it's in the short term or the long term. Our planet is where we live and we have to take care of it. And in Colorado, we're passionate about that. It doesn't align with anything that we stand for here in this state.
So let's go into this. This takes us into our second question. Um, and it's about how does the influence of groups like Moms for Liberty fit into Project 2025's vision, especially regarding public education and community values?
So here locally, in Douglas County, we've been having a big issue with that. the new local Moms for Liberty chapter has been headed up by the senator of House District 39, Brandy Bradley, and they have been verbatim quoting practically Project 2025 at our local school board meetings, namely page 5 of Project 2025, where it talks about anything to do with trans individuals or the LGBTQ community being considered pornography, and making teachers and educators who allow students to check out age appropriate books about two male penguins getting married to be like needing to register as sex offenders. Like, it is so ridiculous. And the use of the word groomer, we have seen that at our local school board meetings, where members of this Moms for Liberty group have been accusing everybody from the school board members to the community members who don't agree with them and oppose their efforts, to our local Democratic candidates, of being groomers simply for being LGBTQAI plus allies. It's entirely ridiculous, but it's verbatim from the document. So you can see, if you're paying attention and if you know Project 2025 well enough and you understand the connection of all of these groups, which Moms for Liberty has been classified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group, and as well as their other allies, Gays Against Groomers. We've seen that in our community here. You can see that they're working hand in hand with the Heritage Foundation, and these groups are all working together to try to push these agendas into our schools. We had an issue where Lauren Boebert encouraged her constituents here to spam the school board members when they attempted to pass the Title IX amendments, again, straight out of Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation doesn't like the Title IX amendments that protect pregnant and lactating students and protect LGBTQAI students from harassment and sexual discrimination, and create a framework for holding people who discriminate against those students accountable. And our school did not pass the Title IX amendments, and it's a direct violation of federal law. But I think they're just hoping that Trump will win and that it will become a non-issue. But these groups of students are vulnerable, and our community is coming together to protect them. And we're not going to allow the school or the Heritage Foundation or Moms for Liberty or Gays Against Groomers to harm children, because as a psych nurse, I have seen the effects of what happens to children who are not protected, who are put in environments where mental and emotional abuse is the norm. And it's devastating. These are children who don't want to keep living. And no, we're not doing that. People are fighting back.
And thank you for doing the work that you do. These influences, like in groups like Moms for Liberty, they are just polarizing public schools and potentially excluding and alienating non-religious and minority students, and putting the entire communities at risk with these just extremist agendas.
Yeah, I've said it, and I know this word's going to sound extreme, but I've said it before. If you know about the Christian nationalist movement, I feel like deep down these groups aim to segregate our country again. They aim to segregate the public school system by making it an unwelcome place for any diverse students to exist, an unsafe place for students who aren't white Christian nationalists to live, to learn, to thrive.
It is absolutely scary. As we talk about changing values, there's one area where Project 2025's agenda hits especially hard, and that's reproductive rights. What many don't realize is that these abortion bans reach beyond choice. And after the break, we're going to talk about how they target essential health care for women facing life-threatening complications.
Today, we have an amazing show for you. Join myself, special guests, and celebrities.
What's going on, Ice-T? Andrew Yang.
Somebody else was hopping on.
Oh, hold on.
What's going on, battle?
As we roast GQP Jackaloons.
He may not be a real businessman, but he is one hell of a con artist.
That's what it is. That's what they got indicted for. Treason and sedition. And addresses the headlines of the day.
They must be held accountable.
Live streaming every night.
I got more time in a friggin' port in a friggin' combat zone than you've probably got in the military.
This is Ojeda Live.
Well, we're going to talk about the impact of abortion bans on healthcare. Jennifer, when we talk about abortion bans, A lot of people may not realize that these bans often target the D&C procedure, which is used not only for abortion, but also for treating miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies. Um, can you help clarify how these bans impact medical care for women beyond just reproductive choices?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of confusion and just a lack of understanding about what actually has been banned under abortion bans. So, what has been banned is the surgical procedure, a DNC or a dilation and curettage. And what that is when a woman has a miscarriage, an ectopic pregnancy, or an abortion. There's also other medical conditions that they may need to do this procedure to treat. The doctors have to dilate a woman's cervix and they have to go in and they have to scrape out tissue. If a woman has a miscarriage and she has retained fetal tissue, and she can, what it happens is, and this is this is just some medical knowledge, but that tissue, it begins to decompose, and then that can create an infection for that woman. And it's important for the doctors to remove every last bit of that tissue so that the woman can heal. Otherwise she can become what we call septic, which means that she can have a blood infection that shuts down her internal organs and can kill her. And it can happen very quickly, because it's that's something it's a very normal type of complication that can happen for women. And it's also why a lot of women need to take mifepristone or misoprostol, those two medications that the Supreme Court has been trying to ban as well. These are life-saving medications and surgical procedures for women, and they're not just used for abortion. They're not just used to terminate a pregnancy. These are people's sisters who had a miscarriage and need medical care. These are people's cousins who had an ectopic pregnancy, which can kill a woman very quickly if not treated. And we have states like Texas who refuse to allow women to even receive a DNC in the event of a medical emergency in an emergency room. And women are dying. Women and girls are dying. We are just starting to hear stories about the cases of women who are dying under these bans, but we are going to expect to hear a lot more of these stories moving forward, because it's not being reported on, but it is happening, and it's unacceptable. It is absolutely disgusting that we are just normalizing any of this. It's not okay. If it were men, it wouldn't be happening. There is no surgical procedure for men that has been banned by the Supreme Court. Not a single one.
There's an absolutely tragic story of Amber Thurman in Georgia. These things should not be happening in 2024.
No, they shouldn't.
So, what are the broader implications for women's health care and the risks for medical providers under these abortion restrictions?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of providers who are rightfully afraid of legal repercussions for doing their jobs and fulfilling their Hippocratic oath of first doing no harm and taking care of their patients. And so we're having a lot of OBGYNs that are fleeing these red states with abortion bans, and it's creating maternal care deserts where women who are pregnant can't get the care that they need because there's not an OBGYN for miles, sometimes hundreds of miles, maybe perhaps not even the closest providers in the next state. So it's really scary to think about. It's dangerous for women who are pregnant without complications as well. And I mean, it sets the medical profession for women's healthcare back like hundreds of years almost, and it's so inappropriate. But these and I mean, we even see, I think it's Wisconsin, Kristen Lyerly is running, and she was an OBGYN who felt like she couldn't care for her patients anymore under the bans, and so she's now running for public office to try to fix things and try to get things back on track. But it's really inappropriate.
My goodness. Project 2025 is more than a playbook. It's an absolute roadmap to reshape our government, our schools, and our bodies. The choice is up to us, though, to make. We need to stay informed, push back, and don't let this agenda dictate the future we leave behind. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I think people are still kind of on a learning curve about with Project 2025 is that it's already happening. It's been implemented since Trump's first term, and it says that on, I think it's page 886 of the document itself, that they have been implementing these policies since he was in office the first time. It's not a hypothetical future. It's happening right now. And we can all get involved, but we have to be united. We have to stand together and we have to push back against this. If people haven't read the document yet, there's still time. There's a lot of resources out there, including my pages where we do it quickly and we give you the Cliff Notes version to get caught up and get up to speed, because this isn't going away after the election. I really believe either way the election goes, that this specific movement is something we're going to have to continue fighting for years, if not decades. And we have to be vigilant and we have to stay informed and we have to work together, because people's lives are on the line here. Right? It's serious.
To everyone tuning in, stay informed and stay engaged. This isn't just about politics, it's about survival. Visit turnleftpac.org to learn more about how you can push back against policies that put profits before people. Thanks for joining us, and as always, let's keep pushing for a safer, smarter, and more resilient future. And stay tuned next for Ojeda Live.